Eat, Sleep, Boxing, Repeat. This is the preview show. Looking forward to Anthony Joshua versus Usyk. That takes place next weekend at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London. I'm joined by Paul Kelly and Elliot Grigg. How are you doing today, lads?
All good, all good.
Good, yeah, good. I'm very well.
Nice one, nice one. Appreciate both of you giving a bit of your time this afternoon. Really appreciate it. We're going to get right into it then. So first question I've got really is Anthony Joshua obviously has been a heavyweight for his whole career. Usyk's kind of worked his way up from cruiserweight to heavyweight. Joshua's obviously, he suffered a loss in his career. He's come back and won the rematch against Ruiz. I'll go to Elliot Grigg first. Do you think that this is Joshua's toughest fight? Is Usyk the best boxer that he's faced so far in his career, do you think?
I do actually, yeah. I do think this will be the toughest fight he's faced. And I think that obviously, he's coming into it with amateur and professional pedigree, granted, at cruiserweight, obviously. But I think you're looking at it purely in regards of how decorated he is. Obviously, the southpaw style. And I'm looking through Joshua's record as well, and you're looking at it, you're thinking, obviously, there's Klitschko in there. There's a Ruiz in there. I think the Ruiz rematch was massive, but only really because of what was at stake. If he lost it, then obviously the legacy that he'd worked so hard to achieve, and also where would he have gone from there, would have been interesting discussions. But I don't think stylistically it was as difficult. And obviously we know Ruiz had problems outside the ring or leading up to that. But yeah, I think the challenge that Usyk has, he obviously doesn't know how to lose. He's never lost as a professional leader. I think he's fully coming there to win. Not that the other guys haven't, but I think there's been a kind of acceptance, especially against some of the champions. I'm thinking sort of Parker being one of them that stands out for me. Obviously Charles Martin coming there essentially looking to roll over. No, it's probably a bit harsh on Parker, but I think there was kind of an acknowledged acceptance pre-fight that he was probably going to lose. Whereas I think the live opponents that I think Joshua's had, Povetkin, I think was game to win, and I think Dillian White as well. But I think Usyk's just better than both of them. So I do think this is the hardest fight he's had, and this is a credible fight. And I think it's exciting in the sense that whoever you speak to are split fairly 50-50 on the outcome of it as well, which I think obviously portrays the fact that it is a close fight. You don't tend to get that with an AJ pre-fight prediction. So yeah, I think it's the most credible and the toughest challenge he's had.
Fair enough. Interesting stuff. Paul, same question. Would you agree with Elliot, or is there another fight in Joshua's resume that you stick out and think, no, that was tough, where it was the second Ruiz fight, the Klitschko fight? Give me your thoughts.
I can see where Elliot's coming from with his stance, and in a way I can't really disagree, but I'm going to disagree because I think Klitschko, although he got beaten by Fury before, I think Klitschko on paper is the toughest test that Joshua's had. Don't get me wrong, Usyk's definitely top 3 toughest tests I think he's going to have. But for me, the Klitschko, I know he'd been beaten by Fury and he went in, but on the night, Klitschko performed really, really well and probably exceeded people's expectations of him, considering, the manner of defeat to Fury and things like that. But I think that Klitschko that he beat on that night at Wembley was definitely for me is a tougher test than what I see Usyk posing for him in the coming week. But as Elliot said, you can't really argue with Usyk's record. He's the cruiserweight, he demolished the cruiserweights, and he seems to love beating people up in their back garden. So I'm hoping, as a British fight fan, that doesn't happen. But I mean, I wouldn't put it past him at all. He's definitely more than capable of doing so. Is it his toughest test? Not for me. But what do you see? I could be proved wrong. Usyk could run rings around him, and then I look like a mug. But I'm sure we'll see. On paper, for me, it's second or third toughest.
Interesting stuff. Well, yeah, appreciate you both not agreeing with each other. Makes it far interesting, cool. But hope you don't fall out over that. So just want to move on. So I want to move on to the actual fight itself. I'll go to Paul first this time. If Usyk was to win this fight, how does he win it? Can he stop Joshua? Does he dance around him for 12 rounds, jab and move? I'm not asking for a kind of a complete Greg Doll technical breakdown here, but how does Usyk win this fight, Paul, if he does?
I think you already said it there. I think if he is the winner, it definitely for me will be on points. I think that I'm not saying that he doesn't have the power, because every heavyweight, let's be honest, every heavyweight does have power, but I don't think he has the power to knock Joshua out. So I could, if it was to be an Usyk win, I could see it being a unanimous decision or a split decision. Well, could be a unanimous decision, but could be given as a split decision. You know what I mean? If you know what I'm saying with judging and stuff. But I don't think it could stop him. I think he need to box quite more on the. I know he'll be the smaller man, but he's still a big lump of a heavyweight. I actually think he'll come in heavier than he has done before. I could see him nearly hitting 16 stone potentially, and I think he'll need to stand up to the size of Joshua, because although I see Joshua maybe boxing a little bit more, I think that's Usyk's going to have to do the same, because I don't think Usyk can bite down on the gum shield, come forward and slug it out with Joshua. I don't think that's his way to victory. He'll be boxing on the outside, moving his head, being elusive, and just kind of making Joshua miss and picking him off. That's how I see Usyk winning.
Fair enough though. Yeah, looking forward to see how the fight turns out. So, Elliot, same question, but not quite the same question. How does Joshua win this fight? What advice do you think his training is going to be giving to him to be victorious?
I personally see him fighting a cautious fight. I think we'll see the kind of, obviously, southpaw to conventional boxer. We'll see kind of the blueprint. I think that he boxed for a reason. I think he's going to try and keep it long. I mean, it's not a massive, like Paul's saying, it's not as big. I don't think the difference in height and reach necessarily as it's been made out, but it isn't negligible. I think it's like 4 inches of reach and 3 inches in height. So, and the size as well, obviously how comfortable he is at that weight and at that size, and how used to it is, was obviously Usyk sort of coming up and obviously adjusting to that physically as well. So I personally think the smart thing for him to do would be, obviously, in my opinion, would be to just keep him at the end of the jab, box, move, fight cautiously. I just don't. Part of me just, call me cynical, I suppose, we've been bitten so many times in boxing, but I just don't see Usyk coming and getting a decision. I mean, he'd have to box phenomenally well and clearly beat Joshua, I think, to get a decision. I mean, we saw kind of what happened when he fought Chisora. He clearly won that fight, and everyone was basically, the Matchroom FC was saying that he didn't. So it's kind of, I think it's going to be very, very hard for him to get the decision. And like Paul said, I mean, I'm making great TV, I suppose. I'm going to disagree with Paul and say that I think he can knock him out. But what I'm kind of saying, what Paul was saying, I do actually agree with. Like, he's not got the one punch sort of like knockout. I don't think that like a Wilder would do if he lands on that AJ, for example. So what he's going to have to do would be more of a sort of volume breakdown. It's a question of whether he can actually do that, which I do actually agree with Paul. I don't think he will. I don't think Joshua will get knocked out. The style I think he'll fight in will be kind of back foot and defensive. Again, I don't necessarily think it'd be smart for him to try and engage necessarily in a kind of cerebral boxing context with Usyk. I don't think he'll win that. So I think this is kind of just boxing smart, get the win, take the Ruiz type victory, get it on the record, and then just move on. Which I would respect him. I would respect him fully for doing as well. I'm not. Yeah. I don't need him to come in there and try and like banjo him like in the first couple of rounds. I think that'd be stupid. So yeah, I do think AJ will win. I think he'll keep it long and he'll keep it defensive, and he'll take the points decision. Okay,
interesting stuff. And not trying to push your prediction too much, Elliot, but say so if your prediction is Joshua points, are you like 90% confident of that, 70% confident of that? Can you give me some sort of prediction or some sort of percentage prediction on how confident you are?
I'm confident, but not for boxing reasons. I'm confident because I just think everything tells me that like there's so much investment in Joshua fighting Fury, for example.
Yeah.
I just think, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd love to see Usyk fight Fury as well, but I almost think like everyone's kind of willing that as an outcome. Which is why I just don't think, unless he kind of Usyk just completely like gives him like, sort of, I don't even think 8-4 would be enough, like a 10-2 kind of points win to get a points decision. I just don't see it happening, and I don't see him knocking him out. So yeah, that's kind of the only outcome I can see. So I'm probably about 75% into that prediction. Fair. If I had to bet, I would be betting that way. But equally on the night, anything can kind of happen. But I do beforehand, that's kind of where I'm leaning.
Interesting. And same question for you, Paul. How confident are you of your prediction? Are you more of a 50-50 guy, or are you really confident that what you're saying is going to happen?
I'm really confident Joshua will win. Really, really confident. I know I'm a big Joshua fan, so there's obviously going to be a slight bias there, I'm sure. But no, I do. I'm trying to put all feeling towards Joshua aside. I do think he'll win, and I do agree. I think points is probably quite likely for me. Wouldn't surprise me because obviously we know how powerful he is. He could stop anybody. But I just don't see it happening to Usyk. So I would say that Joshua on points is probably, if I was, had to pick one, that would be my pick.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Well, yeah, we'll see if this comes true. I think just a couple more things I wanted to touch on with you guys before we depart is Usyk's feels like, for a mixture of reasons, he's been in the heavyweight division for a while now. That the final cruiserweight fight against Tony Bellew was coming up to 3 years ago now, but for a number of obvious reasons, he's not been as active as many fighters. But I'm not asking for like a complete breakdown of heavyweight rankings from you guys, BoxRec style, but where does Usyk sit in your current heavyweight rankings? Is he number 3 behind Joshua and Fury? Is he all the way down at kind of number 8 or number 9? Is he above Dillian Whyte? In a couple of minutes, can you guys sum that up for me? Paul, I'll go to you first.
If you had asked me this as soon as he moved up to heavyweight, I would have thrown him straight into the top 5 without even fighting it. Heavyweight might sound stupid, but since his few fights he's had it, at heavyweight, I put him actually a little bit further down the pecking order, which might be too harsh. I've probably got him sitting around 6, 7, 8 behind, the obvious ones, Joshua, Fury, Wilder, White, probably even Ruiz, to be honest. So I have him, don't get me wrong, he's definitely a top 10 heavyweight, but I don't think he's done anything to merit really being up there in the same conversation. Not that he hasn't done anything, he's obviously done things like cruiserweight and stuff, but in heavyweight, he hasn't done anything for me to merit being up there with Joshua and Fury just yet.
Fair enough. Okay, interesting stuff. Elliot, do you agree with Paul on this one? Where's Usyk in your current rankings?
I can see where Paul's coming from. Yeah, I really can. I think again, like you were saying, move up to cruiserweight, you're thinking top 3, and part of me is still kind of tempted to stick him in at 3. I don't think he's obviously beyond Fury and AJ. I don't think you can say that with a straight face. Equally, I definitely understand what Paul's saying. I think fighting someone like Ruiz would be a good test for him, to be honest. Fighting with someone like Park would be a good test. I don't feel like we really know much about Usyk still at heavyweight. I mean, obviously the first fight was what it was, and then the second one against Chisora, again, it's like Chisora's obviously on the downward slope as well. So it's kind of like, I suppose, we're seeing how he'll get on against someone of that size or someone who's established at that size. But I still don't think it in any way prepares us for like how we would fight against some of the bigger guys, like obviously Fury, AJ and Wilder. So I would probably knock him down. It's tough because obviously I'm looking at like Dillian Whyte as well. I'm thinking, I mean, he's just better than Dillian Whyte in my mind. So it's a case of like, I mean, Dillian Whyte obviously is a big lad. Don't get me wrong, would cause some problems, but I think he would beat him. So I'd have to sit there and go. But then I can also kind of see what Paul's saying about Ruiz, for example. That'd be a really intriguing fight with like the hand speed and the kind of size similarities in some ways. Would actually make that more interesting for me to watch, I think, than the White fight. So I'll put him in at 4, I think, just because I don't think you can put him above Wilder either, just because if Wilder touches anyone, they could go. So it's kind of, and he's obviously lost to Fury and stuff, so you kind of go, well, that's fair enough as part of the course. So I don't think you can really put him above those 3. So I'd stick him in at 4 for now.
Fair. I think it's one thing discussing kind of rankings. It's another thing actually seeing these guys fight each other. So fingers crossed, whatever happens in a couple of weeks' time, we see Usyk fight the likes of White, Wilder, Ruiz, or at least one of those guys, but you can never guarantee anything. Cool. So I'm kind of assuming that if Usyk wins on September 25th, then we'll see a rematch. Quickly, would you guys agree with that? Yeah. I think that was pretty fair to assume that. So what I really want to focus on, we can't really avoid it. We kind of mentioned it slightly before. If Anthony Joshua wins September 25th, I'm kind of asking you to predict what happens in Fury Wilder as well. Do you guys think we'll see Joshua Fury in 2022? Paul, I'm kind of looking for a yes or no here, if I'm honest. Feel free to expand on yes or no, but Do you think we're going to see that mega fight in the first half of next year?
I'm going to be honest. Being real, I don't think we will see it in the first half of next year. Don't get me wrong, we'd all love to, but I just don't see it happening. I mentioned, I was thinking the other day, part of me still, I don't know why, there's no real reason behind it. Part of me still doesn't think that the Wilder Fury fight's going to happen. I don't know why. I just think something's going to fall out of place. So I hope I'm wrong, obviously, because I kind of want, Fury deal with Wilder again, Joshua hopefully deal with Usyk, and then finally to get them all together. But then it's obviously easier said than done. But in a perfect world, yeah, I'd love to see them fight, but the cynic in me thinks there'll be some sort of stumbling block that comes in the way of it happening again. Just fight. Who cares if there's no belts on the line? Just put them in the bin. I don't care. Just fight. We all know you're the best too, especially if you beat Wilder and Usyk again. So just fight. I know it's all this undisputed. You want to have all the belts. For me, I don't care.
We'll see. Fight. Yeah, we shall see. Yeah, well, fingers crossed. And just kind of, I know I'm asking for a lot from you here, but if Joshua doesn't fight Fury next year, or early next year, have you got any names you can throw at me, or who would you want to see Joshua face in his next fight? I think March is supposed to be the month he's going to be fighting next. And as I said, I know you're asking to predict kind of the outcome of 2-3 fights here, but give me a couple of names that you would like to see Joshua fight if Fury's not available for whatever reason.
White, I would always like to see the White rematch. A name that we haven't mentioned yet, who I know used to train alongside Joshua in the GB, but if he's a mandatory, I wouldn't mind seeing the Joe Joyce fight. Would not mind seeing that. There's always going to be a market for the trilogy with Ruiz, even though the second one was fairly conclusive. I feel like because it's one apiece, you could always set up a trilogy there. So there's just 3 off the top of my head who I wouldn't mind seeing him fight if it wasn't Fury.
Yeah, fair. Well, we shall see. Cool. Elliot, same and final question, really. If Joshua wins, do you think we'll see Joshua Fury next year?
I kind of agree with Paul. I kind of don't. But I don't think that's to do with Asia. I think he's come out this week, like BBC and everything, saying that he feels he needs to fight him. So I don't think. I think initially there was a lot, wasn't in the background of everyone that was sort of the opinion was that kind of Matchroom and her and everyone were keeping AJ from Fury, and the belief that he would lose. But I don't see that as being the case anymore. I think if anything, it's the other way around. And I think if you look at, I was a big fan of Tyson Fury, but if you look at the 2 records as well, you're looking at it and going like, Fury needs AJ on their record more than the other way around. So part of me thinks it would. Part of me thinks it does. It will happen, but then at the same time, I don't think it will happen front end of next year. Definitely not. Right. Again, I just think I'd quite likely see. Like I can also see what Paul's saying. I can quite easily see Wilder Fury not happening. I can equally likely see, some sort of mind games or some sort of training injury or whatever will keep it from happening, or just we'll go into September, it's more money, etc., etc. We'll let it marinate a bit further. So no, I don't think we'll see it in the first half, but I do kind of think we'll see it. I do think we'll see it at some point, but I do think we'll see it beyond when we want to see it. So don't get me wrong, we'll always want to see it, but beyond when it would be, which would have been obviously that this sort of time of year now would have been just unbelievable, would have been huge. But yeah, I think we'll see it when it's still declining a little. But not front end next year for me.
Could be another Mayweather Pacquiao in 6 years.
It could well be another Brook Khan. He'll be like 50. He'll still be getting in the ring.
You never know. Yeah. Cool. All right, gents. Well, no, I really appreciate that. Really enjoyed that. Good insight from both of you. Does anyone have anything more to add about next week? Anything they're particularly looking forward to finding out?
I was just going to tell you what I was thinking when Paul was talking about the people he wanted AJ to fight next. I was thinking it almost goes against every bone in my body to want to see like Joyce in a professional ring and want to watch that. But I would actually watch him fight AJ. I think that'd actually be quite good to see. And yeah, I think the 3 that he mentioned as well actually would the only place to go. I kind of don't really want to see AJ fight anyone if it isn't Fury. It's just going to annoy me to know. But I also like the 3 names he mentioned, I would definitely take watching as well. I think the Ruiz one, the Joyce one, and then Yeah, I think he beat White more convincingly than before, but I'd still like to see it.
Do you think he beats Joyce?
You know what? Like, I would have before the last year, I would have gone, "What are you saying to me?" Of course he does.
Yeah,
but I don't know. There's part of me about Joyce who's kind of like, don't get me wrong, I would never describe myself as being a fanboy necessarily, but you have to respect his achievements and his actual tenacity. So I actually think maybe you could just jab him to death like the Terminator and just go down, and then in a way you'd be like, fair play. Like, I can't argue with it. So he could legitimately beat him. I mean, the exercise that he would go in against Fury would make it too much of a challenge for me, because I think Fury would just jab him as well, and it'd be just like whose arms longer, just cut off the rest of their body and just have two arms, just like going like this. But with AJ, I think there's potential, but you just can't seem to knock him out.
No.
But no, I do think AJ would still win, but I would like to see it. I think it'd be a good spectacle.
Yeah,
I think he would deserve it. Out of the other ones, I think he would deserve it. Reflecting enough to think he would deserve that payday. I think White's obviously had it already, and Ruiz has had it and wasted it. So in a way, it's like let him have it out of the three of them.
Yeah, I think personally, I think Joshua Joyce is a good shout, because I think Joyce is in a good. I don't bother to keep up with the whole mandatory situation or anything like that, but it looks like Joyce is in a good situation to fight for a world title next year. Obviously, it's an all-British fight. I think it just comes down to how easily you can make it, but I really wouldn't rule that out March, April time next year in the UK. So we will see. But I feel like whatever happens now for both Joshua and Fury's careers, they're always going to be asked about that fight until it does happen. So whatever does happen, it's just going to be frustrating for everyone, because everyone's just going to kind of keep talking about that fight. We could be in 5 years' time, and everyone will just still be talking about it, regardless of if it's happened or not. So I think
what's also really intriguing about next weekend is what happens to Usyk if he loses as well. Like, what does he do? I mean, you kind of wondering if he cruiserweight, you kind of had a shot at the heavyweight, hasn't come out for you. You hang around for Fury, or do you just go? I don't know. Where do you go, really? Like, where's the challenge there after that? Do you bother to rebuild? Do you try and strip weight and go back to cruiser? I don't know what you try and do, really, from that position.
Personally, I think it comes down to how he loses. If he just gets blasted out because he gets blasted out by the much bigger man, I wouldn't rule him out going to cruiserweight. But obviously, there's not the money in that division. So I think the most likelihood is if he does lose, he'll then just look to challenge the best heavyweight possible, whether that is White, Ruiz, whoever. How about you, Paul? If Usyk does lose next week, what do you think he'll do next?
I think he was right there. I think he'd have to have another. I don't think he would just give up or whatever. I feel like he'd still believe he might have just been an off night. It does all depend on how he loses. I think you're right, Elliot. But I wouldn't. I think he could. If say he loses, come back, fight the likes of Ruiz if he hasn't fought anybody. Fight someone like another name that I know he lost to. I know he lost to Joe Joyce, but say Usyk in 12 years' time. 12 months, sorry. In 12 months' time, depending on how Daniel Dubois is going, that could be another crossover fight that you wouldn't mind seeing, because Dubois obviously stepped up to fight Joyce, got beat on that occasion, but he's going to come again. And that could be, I'm not saying that Usyk would be then become a gatekeeper at world level, but if they're both wanting to move on to that next level, Usyk coming back from a loss and Dubois trying to rebuild up again, another fight, which just kind of come to my head there. I've never really thought about it before. But if I'm thinking 12 to 18 months down the line, why not?
Yeah. But what's sad is that I'd watch all those fights you just mentioned, and it's like, will we ever get to the end of them? It's just like another matter, isn't it? Like, literally would watch all of them. Without a doubt.
Yeah. No, you never. Nothing's really guaranteed, is it? But we shall see. We shall see. All right, cool. Well, that wraps up our first kind of preview show of a big super fight. We've never really done this before. But yeah, once again, thanks to both of you for your time and your opinions. And yeah, it would be good to catch up with both of you post fight, see if your predictions have come true.
Thank you very much.
Yes, cheers, Elliot. Thank you.
Cheers,
Maybe go well.